A man falls overboard at night, and the whole ship turns into panic in 1 second. Men shout from the rail. A lantern swings, the officer orders the helm over. Someone throws a line into black water. Someone else points at nothing because he thinks he saw a hand, then the ship moves past. The sea closes, the voice stops, and after a few minutes nobody knows where the man is. That is Davy Jones. Not a squid-faced monster. Not a cursed captain playing an organ under the ocean. Not some Disney boss fight waiting at the end of the map. Davy Jones was born from something much worse. A real sailor could vanish 10 feet from his own ship and still be gone forever. Before the movies made him famous, before Pirates of the Caribbean gave him tentacles and a tragic love story, before Jack Sparrow turned the name into a joke with a sword fight attached, Davy Jones already lived in the heads of sailors. He was not always drawn the same way. He did not need one face. He was the name men gave to the place beneath the water where bodies went and did not return. Britannica calls Davy Jones the personification of the spirit of the sea, usually malevolent to sailors. His locker means the bottom of the ocean, the grave of those who die at sea. That sounds clean in a dictionary, almost too clean, but imagine hearing it in the dark on an 18th century ship. You are somewhere between Jamaica and the Bahamas. The deck is wet, the rigging is creaking overhead. The captain wants more speed before dawn. The lookouts are half awake. The sea is not some pretty blue travel poster. It is cold. It is heavy. It is moving under you every second. You do not swim for fun out here. You do not get rescued by a helicopter. You do not call the Coast Guard if you fall. The ship has to find you with eyes at night in waves, with canvas still pulling the hull forward. That is the part the movies usually skip. Davy Jones did not scare pirates because sailors were stupid. He scared them because he gave a name to the most practical fear on the ocean, the fear that a man could be alive one moment and deleted the next. On land, death leaves evidence, a grave, a room, a body, a witness. At sea, death can leave nothing. No blood on the deck, no broken door, no last letter, just a missing hammock, a silent mess bowl, a name removed from the watch list. That empty space needed a name. So sailors said he had gone to Davy Jones Locker. The locker was not a chest in the way modern people imagine a school locker. A locker on a ship was storage, a place where things were put away. Rop gear Nifa. 2. And in sailor talk, the ocean itself became the final locker. The bottom of the sea was where wrecks went. Cannons went there. Anchors went there. Cargo went there. Men went there too. There is a nasty truth in that phrase. It sounds almost casual. A man is not dead. He is in the locker. The words soften the punch. Sailors used humor because the alternative was sitting with the full weight of it every day, and that would break a crew fast. The old phrase appears in different forms across centuries. One early form was David Jones his locker in the 1670s. By the late 1700s and early 1800s, Davy Jones Locker was already part of nautical slang. In 1751, Tobias Smollett wrote about Davy Jones as a fiend in sailor mythology, a being seen before hurricanes, shipwrecks, and disasters. That is not the start of the fear. That is the fear already old enough to be put in print. And here is where people mess this story up. They try to find the real Davy Jones. Was he a pirate? Was he a pub owner who trapped drunk sailors? Was he linked to Jonah from the Bible? Was he some Welsh name mixed with old sea talk? The honest answer is that nobody can prove it cleanly. The origin is muddy. The theories are fun, but the power of the legend does not come from a birth certificate. It comes from the job the legend did. Davy Jones explained what no sailor could control. And for pirates, control was everything. A pirate crew in the Golden Age did not live inside the clean fantasy people picture now. The classic pirate age ran roughly from the late 1600s into the early 1700s. Think Nassau, New Providence, and Jamaica, the coast of Carolina, the Windward Passage, the Bahama Channels, the Spanish Main. These men lived by speed, fare, luck, and information. They chose fast ships because escape mattered. They watched wind because wind decided whether you chased a prize or became one. They cared about shallow water because reefs could save you from a Navy ship or rip your own hull open in minutes. A pirate could vote for a captain, loot by articles, punish theft, torg over targets, replace bad leaders. In some ways, his ship could feel more democratic than a merchant vessel or a naval ship. But the sea never voted. The sea did not care if you were Blackbeard, Bartholomew Roberts, Anne Bonny Mary Red, Calico Jack, Charles Vane, or some nameless deckhand with one shirt and bad teeth. Once you were over the side, your reputation meant nothing. That is why Davy Jones fit the pirate world so well. Pirates like to act outside the law. The sea was outside every law. Picture a pirate sloop slipping out of Nassau around 1718. The crew wants Spanish coin and sugar cargo. The route takes them through the Bahamas, where the water can look calm and bright by day, but shallow banks, reefs, and sudden squalls can turn the same place into a trap. A helmsman can misjudge a channel. A lookout can miss white water on a moonless night. A mast can crack. A sail can tear. A man can climb the shrouds to reef canvas and lose his grip. One slip, one bad knot, one wave hitting the hull at the wrong time. Then someone hears the splash. That sound could freeze a ship. A man overboard in daylight was terrifying. A man overboard at night was almost a sentence. The ship was not a motorboat. It could not stop dead. It had momentum. It had wind in the sails. The crew had to reduce speed, not launch a boat if there was time, keep sight of the man, the thwarf lines, or floating gear. And if the sea was rough, the whole rescue could become another accident. Now add darkness. At night, the ocean removes distance. It removes direction. A floating head can vanish behind a small wave. A shout can move strangely over water. Lantern light reaches only so far. The ship itself is loud. Tan snap, stop locks, knock, whole timbers strain. Men shout over each other. One points left. Another swears the cry came from the stern. Another says he heard nothing. A few minutes later, the crew has to decide whether the man is gone. That decision is brutal, because the ship cannot search forever. Pirates on a stolen vessel could be hunted. Merchant sailors could lose their course. Naval ships could have orders. Storms could be building. The living crew still had to survive, so the missing man became a sentence spoken low. Davy Jones has him. That was not fantasy. That was emotional damage management. Sailors used legends because the sea gave them too many questions with no answer. Why did a healthy man vanish from his watch? Why did the ship that left port last month never arrive? Why did a storm rise with almost no warning? Why did a dead calm trap a ship until the water went bad? Why did fever take 6 men in 1 week and leave the worst drunk alive? Why did the compass act strange? Why did a light appear on the mast before a storm? Modern people want exact causes. Weather systems, nutrition, infection, navigation error, charts, fatigue, and timber. We can explain more now, but explanation does not remove fear. And back then, explanation was often missing. So sailors built a mental world where the sea had moods, the wind could be insulted, certain words were dangerous. Whistling could call a storm. Some departure days were bad. Some animals were bad luck. A sailor might laugh at it in daylight and still refuse to test it after midnight. That is not hypocrisy, that is survival psychology. When a job can kill you randomly, rituals feel useful. Even fake control can calm a crew. A man who ties the same knot twice spits over the side, avoids a banned word, refuses to whistle, is doing something. And doing something feels better than admitting that the ocean can take anyone without a reason. Pirates were not above this. They had more reasons to believe in bad signs than most sailors. A merchant sailor feared storms, diseased, hungered, hard officers, low pay, and wreck. A pirate feared all of that plus capture, hanging, betrayal, mutiny, revenge. And the Royal Navy. The pirate deck was a workplace, a battlefield, a prison, a tavern, and a graveyard waiting for weather, and Davy Jones belonged in all of it. The movie version gives him a face because audiences need a villain they can look at. The real legend was scarier because he did not have to appear. He was the missing man, the unmarked wreck, the empty horizon, the rumor from a port where a ship was expected and never came. Take a port like Port Royal in Jamaica in the late 17th century. Ships arrived with news. They brought gossip, prizes, disease letters, deserters, drunk men with stories, and captains lying through their teeth. A missing ship did not become a clean report, it became talk. Someone said she was taken by pirates off Hispaniola. Someone said she hit a reef near the Bahamas. Someone said fever took her crew, and she drifted. Someone said lights were seen before the storm. Someone said Davy Jones wanted payment. That is how legends travel, not from one official book, from mouths, docks, taverns, night watches, and men trying to make sense of bad luck. A sailor hears a story in Jamaica. He repeats it in Nassau. Another man carries it to Charleston. Another repeats it in London. By the time the story returns to the Caribbean, has grown teeth. And that is perfect for pirates, because pirates were already half real and half rumor while alive. Blackbeard understood theater better than most criminals in history. In 1718, Edward Teach built fear into his image. The smoking fuses in his beard may sound theatrical now, but intimidation was practical. If a target surrendered fast, fewer men died and less cargo was damaged. Fear saved ammunition. Davy Jones worked in the same mental space, not as a trick from one pirate captain, but as a shared fear already sitting inside the men on both ships. Imagine a merchant crew seeing a black flag and armed men coming close. They know pirates may rob them and leave them. They also know resistance could put them into the sea. The threat is not only a blade or a pistol. The threat is the water around everything. A pirate did not need to say much. The ocean said enough. Walk the plank is mostly exaggerated by later fiction. Pirates usually did not need that neat little stage show. Real violence at sea was rougher and more practical. A man could be beaten, shot cut down, marooned, or simply thrown overboard. And if he went overboard with hands tied, or far from land. That was Davy Jones in plain language. No courtroom, no grave, no witness once the ripples closed. That is why the phrase could carry menace in one line. Says him to Davy Jones. Everyone understood. The sea was already a mass grave long before anyone used cinematic music. Think about shipwreck. A wooden ship in bad weather was a world falling apart plank by plank. Men pumped water until their arms failed. They cut away masts to stop the hull from rolling. They threw cargo overboard. They prayed. They cursed. They tried to keep powder dry. They listened for the sound nobody wanted. The sound of the hull striking reef or rock. If the ship broke near shore, some men could swim or cling to wreckage. If it broke in open water, the ocean decided the rest. There was no rescue service sweeping a grid, no radio beacon, no emergency flare seen by aircraft. A ship could disappear between ports and become a blank line in a ledger. Families might wait months for news. Owners might argue over insurance. Sailors in port would build stories from pieces. Maybe she foundered in a hurricane. Maybe pirates took her. Maybe the crew mutinied. Maybe Davy Jones opened the locker. This is where the legend feels close to horror, not because of monsters, because uncertainty keeps feeding it. A confirmed death ends one kind of fear. A disappearance keeps it alive. Sailors lived inside disappearance. They left home for months or years. A man could step onto a ship in Bristol, sail to the Caribbean, catch fever in Jamaica, get pressed into another vessel, desert in New Providence, join pirates, die in a squall near the Windward Passage. And his family might never know a single true detail. He simply went to sea and did not come back. Davy Jones was the name placed over that empty file, and the ocean gave sailors plenty of material. Storms were not romantic. A storm at sea meant wet clothes that never dried, hands torn open by rope darkness, broken spars, loose guns, cargo shifting below, bilge water rising, men vomiting from fear and motion and exhaustion. It meant being ordered up into rigging while the deck below disappeared in spray. It meant holding canvas while the wind tried to rip you off the ship. If you fell from the yard, you could hit the deck and die. If you missed the deck, you hit the water and vanished. Even the ship itself became dangerous. A loose block could crack a skull. A cannon not properly secured could roll in heavy seas. A hatch could slam. A wet deck could send a man under the rail. Fire could turn a vessel into a floating death trap. Powder could explode. Rot could weaken timber in places nobody saw until the hull was under stress. Then there was disease. People often imagine pirates dying in glorious fights. Plenty died in boring, ugly ways. Fever, infection, dysentery, scurvy, wounds that rotted, water, bog, food. A ship packed with men was a perfect place for sickness. The air below could be foul. The food could be salted until it barely felt human. Fresh water could turn nasty. Rats and insects did their work. Tropical ports brought diseases European sailors often could not handle. A man could be strong in the morning and burning by night. The crew could do almost nothing except move him aside. Give water if any was left. And wait, if he died at sea, burial was usually simple. The body was sewn in canvas. Often weighted, then it went overboard. The sea took him in front of everyone. That part was witnessed, but the result was the same. No grave to visit, no marker, no stone, Davy Jones Locker. So the phrase covered two kinds of loss. The man swallowed by accident and the man lowered by ritual. The missing and the buried. Both ended in the same place. The difference between myth and reality was thinner than people think. A sailor might not literally believe a horned demon was sorting bodies under the Atlantic, but he understood that the sea kept its dead. And if someone wanted to call that keeper, Davy Jones, find better to give the dark a name than stare into it with no words. That is why the legend survived. It was flexible. In one telling, Davy Jones is a sea devil. In another, he is just the ocean. In another, he is a warning before hurricanes. In another, he is the owner of the locker. In another, he is almost a joke. A rough sailor phrase thrown out after a man drops a tool overboard. There goes another one to Davy Jones. That humor mattered. Sailors joked about death because death worked beside them. The joke did not mean they were fearless. It meant fear had become part of the job. Think about a pirate crew after a fight. The deck is wrecked. Splinters everywhere to one man missing. One man bleeding. One prize taken. The quartermaster counts shares. The carpenter checks damage. The surgeon, if there is one, does what he can. Someone asks where Tom went. Nobody answers at first. Then a man at the rail says the sea got him. That is all. No speech, no music, no heroic slow motion. Just a missing pirate and the rest of the crew dividing his share by whatever their articles allowed. Pirate articles sometimes promised compensation for injuries. A lost arm, a lost leg, an eye, a hand. That sounds almost modern in a grim way. But there was no compensation for being erased. If the sea took you, the account closed. That is real pirate horror. The ocean was not a setting. It was the biggest character in the story. Movies turn Davy Jones into a boss because cinema needs shape. And honestly, the Pirates of the Caribbean version works. It gives the sea a face. It gives guilt a face. It gives the bottom of the ocean a captain. The tentacles, the wet coat, the cursed crew, the organ, the Flying Dutchman energy. It sticks because it understands one thing. Sailors feared not only death, they feared being claimed. But the older legend is colder. The old Davy Jones does not make deals. He does not need your soul on paper. He does not walk across the deck with a dramatic entrance. He waits below every plank. He is there when a drunk sailor leans too far over the rail. He is there when a mast snaps. He is there when fog hides land. He is there when a ship misses its harbor and nobody can prove why. The real ocean already had enough horror without fantasy. Fog alone could build a legend. A ship in fog loses the world. Sound changes, distant lies. Land can be near and unseen. Another vessel can appear too late. Reefs can wait under quiet water. Men on watch become tense because seeing is their job and fog steals the job from them. If something knocks against the hull, a branch, wreckage, a dead animal, broken spar, nobody knows at first. Now put that on a pirate ship full of tired men who have stolen goods aboard and enemies somewhere behind them. Every sound becomes a warning. The creak in the hold, the slap under the stern, the bell on another ship. The cry of a bird where no bird should be, a light in the fog, a shape on the mast. A sailor half awake can turn anything into a sign, and once one man says he saw something, the story starts. By morning it is bigger, by next port it has a name. Davy Jones was seen in the rigging. That is how fear behaves in closed worlds. Ships were closed worlds. Men could not walk away from the rumor. They slept beside it, ate beside it, stewed watch after hearing it. The story had nowhere to go except deeper into the crew. A bad captain could use that. A smart captain could manage it. A weak captain could lose control of it. Because superstition on a ship was not cute, it could affect discipline. A crew convinced the voyage was cursed might refuse work. Slow down, whisper, challenge orders, or look for someone to blame. In a hard storm, morale mattered. In a chase, morale mattered. In a battle, morale mattered. A terrified crew could be more dangerous than the weather. So legends could help and hurt. They helped because they gave fear a shape. They hurt because fear with a shape can start making decisions. This is why the best sailors were practical and superstitious at the same time. They could know how to reef a sail and still avoid a bad word. They could navigate by stars and still hate whistling into the wind. They could laugh at an old tale in port and still go silent when the sea turned strange. That is not stupidity. That is what happens when experience tells you the world is larger than your control. Pirates had their own version of that tension. They were violent men to desperate men, sometimes escaped sailors, former privateers, runaway servants, enslaved or formerly enslaved men in some crews, criminals, opportunists, and survivors. Many had already seen legal ships treat common sailors brutally. A pirate ship could offer more food, more voice, and a share of plunder, but it also offered the gallows and the deep. So a pirate might fear the Navy, but he also feared weather more than any Navy officer. A Navy frigate could be outrun sometimes. A storm could not be bribed. A governor could offer a pardon. The sea offered nothing. A captain could be voted out. The ocean could not. That is the cleanest way to understand Davy Jones. He was the part of the world no pirate democracy could touch. And the fear started early. New sailors learned fast that land rules no longer applied. On shore, a careless step might bruise you. At sea, a careless step could remove you from history. On shore, rain is annoying. At sea, rain can blind the deck and hide a squall. On shore, sickness means bed. At sea, sickness can spread through the berth and weaken the whole crew. On shore, darkness ends the workday. At sea, darkness begins another watch. Night watch was where legends grew best. You stand with cold hands on wet wood. The ship moves under your feet. The horizon is gone. The stars may be hidden. The wake glows sometimes with strange light from tiny life in the water. To an exhausted sailor in the 1700s, that glow could look unnatural. Then a rope knocks against a mast. A sail shifts. A man coughs below, somewhere out in the dark. Water breaks in a way that might be a wave, might be a fish, might be wreckage. You tell yourself it is nothing. Then you remember the story. A man saw Davy Jones before the last hurricane. A man heard a voice from the water before a ship went down. A man dreamed of the locker before fever took the gunner. And because you are human, your mind starts connecting things. That is the engine of folklore, not lies, not pure invention, part making under pressure. The ocean gives random events. The brain hates random events, so the brain builds a chain. He whistled, then the storm came. The cat crossed the deck, then the mast cracked. The captain ignored the warning. Then we lost 2 men. The lookout saw a shape, then the ship wrecked. Davy Jones was near. Pirates had Davy Jones with sharper teeth because they lived closer to sudden violence. One of the strongest parts of this legend is that it belongs to both sides of the pirate story. A pirate could send a victim to the locker. A pirate could go there himself an hour later. The phrase did not protect the man who used it. That made it honest. A feared captain could die in shallow water. A rich prize could sink before anyone enjoyed the loot. A crew could survive battle and lose men to fever next week. A captured sailor could join pirates and drown during his first chase. There was no stable ground. The whole pirate world was a temporary camp on moving water. That is why maps matter in this story. Look at the Caribbean, not as vacation islands. Look at it as a maze of routes, Spanish treasure, and trade moving from ports. English, French, Dutch, and Spanish interests crossing each other. Small islands, hidden anchorages, reefs, currents, storms, and channels where ships had to pass. Pirates hunted these routes because ships needed them. The windward passage between Cuba and Hispaniola, the waters near Jamaica, the Bahamas with their banks and cays, the approaches to Charleston and the Carolina coast, the route up toward Virginia and beyond. Every route had profit. Every route had hazards. A pirate leaving Nassau could head south toward the windward passage. He could watch for Spanish or French traffic. He could slip among islands where a larger warship might struggle. But he also risked shoals and sudden weather. A pirate heading toward the Carolina coast could threaten merchant shipping, but he entered waters known for storms and tricky coastline. A pirate crossing the Atlantic to West Africa could find prizes, but that meant long open water disease in hot regions. And a ship full of men who might turn on each other if luck ran thin. Every movement was a bet. Davy Jones was the house. The sea always took its cut. And the cut was not only men, ships went to the locker too. That is another reason the phrase stuck. Sailors watched objects vanish constantly. A bucket overboard gone. A knife dropped over the side gone. A cannon lost in a wreck gone. A chest gone. A whole ship gone. The ocean trained men to understand permanent loss. Today, if you drop a phone in a lake, you feel that little punch of helplessness. Now stretch that feeling across your entire life. Your pay, your tools, your friends, your body, your way home. Everything is standing over deep water. Every mistake can fall through the floor of the world. That is the everyday world Davy Jones came from. But the core remains the same. The sea takes, the sea keeps. The sea does not answer questions. That is why the opening image matters. Man overboard at night. That one moment contains the whole legend. A hand slips, the body drops, the ship moves. Men react, the sea gives them almost no time. After that, the story becomes whatever the survivors can stand to say. He fell. We tried. Davy Jones got him. It is short because anything longer hurts. Now compare that with the movie version again. Movie Davy Jones is loud. Old Davy Jones is quiet. Davy Jones has a crew. Old Davy Jones has absence. Davy Jones can be fought. Old Davy Jones is the result when the fight is already over. And that is why the old version is better for real history. Pirates did not need proof of a demon. Proof was floating around them every day. Broken ships, missing men, storms that arrived too fast, fever that emptied hammocks, ports full of rumors, widows without bodies, captains without answers. The legend was not a science claim. It was a survival language, and survival language is powerful because it sticks under stress. When sailors said a man had gone to Davy Jones Locker, they were not writing mythology for tourists. They were putting a lid on fear so the next watch could start. Because that is the part people forget. The ship kept moving. A death at sea did not pause the voyage for grief, not for long. The sails still had to be handled. Pumps still had to be worked. Meals still had to be cooked. Guns still had to be secured. The helm still had to be manned. The dead man left a space. The living men filled it because the sea punished delay. That is brutal, and it is real. A pirate crew could lose a man at midnight and chase a prize at dawn. A merchant crew could bury a sailor in the afternoon and reef sails before evening. A naval crew could watch a body slide beneath the water and return to discipline before the canvas dried. Davy Jones helped compress grief into a phrase. Not because sailors felt less, because they had less room to show it. That is how Davy Jones became more than one story. He could be the evil spirit of the deep. He could be the locker itself. He could be the place where drowned sailors rest. He could be the warning shape before disaster. He could be the punchline when something fell overboard. He could be the threat behind a pirate blade. He could be the truth behind a missing ship. And every version points back to the same reality. The ocean does not return everyone. That is darker than a monster. A monster can be killed. A depth cannot. So when people ask who Davy Jones really was, the best answer is uncomfortable. He was not one man. He was every missing man. He was the sailor who slipped during night watch off the Bahamas. He was the gunner sewn into canvas after fever near Jamaica. He was the pirate thrown overboard after a failed mutiny. He was the prisoner who disappeared after a raid. He was the ship that left Charleston and never made Barbados. He was the wreck somewhere under green water where nobody wrote down the final minute. He was the sentence sailors used when the sea ended the conversation. And that is why pirates feared him long before the movies. Not because they believed every tavern story. Not because they were children scared of bedtime monsters. But because the life they chose had no floor beneath it. Every victory, every theft, every chase, every drunken laugh in Nassau, every coin counted under a lantern, all of it floated over the same dark water. A pirate could beat a merchant crew. A pirate could outrun a governor. A pirate could switch flags. A pirate could lie about his name. A pirate could take a pardon and go back to crime. But he could not negotiate with the deep, and when his luck ran out, no matter how loud he had been in life, the ending could be quiet, a splash at night, a shout, a lantern swinging over black water, then nothing. That was Davy Jones, not the face from the movie. The silence after the sea took a man, and for sailors that was enough.